It's recording. Were we not recording the whole time?
Seems like every road you're on is hit a dead end. There is hope. Let me show.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? We're trying new intros. At least I'm trying.
That's your new intro?
Well, it's just a start. You can't be mad at me for starting. I'm trying, I don't know.
I'm glad you tried.
I just think back to like old school YouTube, like in the 2014 era. Everyone had a different intro depending on the personality profile. And it just kind of...
And that's the one you choose?
It's the only one that came up. I mean, you can't copy people. There used to be one guy who'd be like, hello, best friends.
Uh-huh.
There was another one who did like... Well, some of them weren't good. Some of them were really bad words. But, just have like a unique identifier of who we are or what our style is and go like, oh yeah, that's this podcast. Classic.
Okay.
But I don't know. Do you have a better intro that you could go off of?
I liked our just random cut into, okay, here we are. Hello.
That's so boring.
Wow.
It's so boring.
It only took us 5 episodes to figure that out.
Well, it took us 5 episodes for you to be able to hear it.
I hear it all the time.
No, but like hear how boring it is. Because if I would have said that the first episode, you'd be like, how dare you? And now you're like,
no, I'm how dare you now because I've been editing and I've been hearing it every single time.
I know, but imagine how much more offended you would have been if I would have said that the first time around.
I'm always offended by you.
You'd be on the 6 o'clock news, is all I'm saying. Hey everyone.
Okay.
We're back. Hope you've been good. We took a little bit of a hiatus, which, I mean, at this point, we're not super popular, so I'm sure you guys haven't missed much, but, Ellie got sick. I
got so sick.
I was traveling. And so Ellie's finally better.
Depends. If I laugh too hard, I'll cough. And I may sniffle in this episode. So if I don't breathe right, I'll cough. So
but it's okay.
We're better than before. I lost my voice completely, so like I couldn't talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't think we should record an episode.
Yeah, right.
So,
well, anyway.
But yeah, we're better than before. Thank you, the Lord. Oops.
We're going to block this out in the edit, please.
What'd you do?
My phone was going to fall down. It was like slowly. We're FaceTiming each other, so the camera view is fine, but my phone was like slowly falling off this mantle. And so I was like, I have to catch it.
Oh, we should definitely keep that in the edit. We're going to put that in the intro now.
My double chin doesn't need to be featured. We're good.
Oh, yes. It shall.
No, it's good.
Must. Okay.
It's good. All right.
Well, here we are. Episode 6, I believe, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I'm going to triple check this because what if I'm wrong? That'd be sad.
Well, we can triple check it later. It's the next episode, you guys. That's the important thing.
It's next episode.
We're going forward. And today is going to be a highlight on Ellie.
Hello.
I'll be a little bit more excited, please.
Yeah, it is episode 6. It is the next episode. Hello, everybody.
Yeah. So what are we talking about this time, Miss Ellie?
You gotta remind me.
No, I don't.
Because I didn't read my notes.
You don't need notes to know that it's your turn to go.
What am I talking about this time?
Well, what do you think you are? What did we talk about the last time?
I've slept since then. I don't remember.
Miss, I'm the one who edits for hours and uploads and rewatches.
Yeah, That's great. But I've slept since then, and I've had my day job since then. So I don't know.
So have I. Okay, the last time, because Ellie doesn't remember, she's had
I
a lot
don't.
of over-the-counter medicinal drugs since then.
Oh, I had so many.
um, we last talked about my coming to realization of what my abuse was, and not just my story of before, which was the abuse, but kind of how my life progressed from the abuse into therapy, into identifying what the abuse was, and realizing that I was in an abusive situation. So if that's what we talked about the last time and we're mirroring off each other, then that means Ellie's going to talk about... Don't be shy.
My turn.
Yeah, exactly. Her story.
But,
her story of coming to realize, not necessarily walking away, Ellie for future, that's the next batch. That's the next batch, okay? But the identifying that what our lives were, coming to the truth and realization of what it really was. So that's what Ellie's going to talk about today. It's going to be different. There's a whole different caveat to it. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. So I think, Ellie, what would be really good to start that off would be for you to talk about how when you were first living in Northern California. And I say that just to kind of give you a more linear idea of kind of like start to finish. Sure. But also not unbeknownst to you, but that's kind of when you put up a boundary with the abuser and our mom, and we're like, hey, I can't have a relationship with you guys for a while because I have to figure out my own stuff.
That's not true. That part's not true.
Well, you moved to...
That was in Texas.
Hold on. I know, but there was... That was kind of the genesis of it. Granted, there's some history before, so that's why I say talk about Northern California and go forward with that. Because if you just started in Texas, there's some history before that. There's some things that have happened. There's some things that you started to recognize, even though your mindset wasn't, I'm in brainwash territory. There were still things that you as a person were like, I can't partake in this anymore. So I need to kind of redefine what's safe for me. I need I have a different relationship with my parents. So that's why I say talk about being in Northern California. Talk about kind of do it when I left Northern California, because we were both up there for a time, right? And then I left to go back down before COVID hit.
Yeah. All those details I'm a little confused on. So I'll just start with what I know.
I think it's not funny, but it's like, I'm like, hey, talk about your story. And you're like, I don't remember it. I'm like, I didn't even live your story. And how come I remember so many more details?
Well, this is what's the weird thing is that your trauma and your abuse, as we revealed in previous episodes, has its own, what's the term? Damage on you versus me. And for me, I was brainwashed, and I'm actually still reading material. I just recently read material yesterday where I'm realizing there's a lot of unwiring in my brain and pathological, neurological pathways that I have to need to rewire. And our mom's trauma is different, and it's so crazy how much of depth of the abuse has done to really do damage. But I know we continue to laugh about it, but I literally don't remember stuff. And you remember it better than me. And you remember details. I'd be like, no, I didn't. Oh, wait, yeah, I did. Or whatever the case may be. So let's go on this journey of figuring out my realization of abuse with our abuser. So in 2018, I moved up north to go to the same school that you went to, actually, with our, 6 years difference in age. And when I went up there, I was just going because, I don't know, I think you actually helped me, convince me to not go to our local Cal State school. And you said, no, just get away. I remember briefly you mentioning that, so I went away.
Oh, that was because your abuser did the same thing to me, which was he told you to go there and go into liberal arts, which was the same degree that he wanted me to get. And he kept pushing you to go in an area that you didn't want to go to. And I was like, yeah, don't. Because that will be used against you if you do it. If you don't do it, you don't need that on you. Go do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, so I did go up north, but I still went for music.
Mm-hmm.
And I did drop out. But I will say the experience that I had moving up north, I was starting to realize in between school and relationships that I didn't know how to socialize with other people. And one of the biggest things I look back on now is that living in a dorm, taking care of myself, I didn't know how to take care of myself. Also, having a music degree and going for liberal arts, you're in 10 classes a day. So, like, you have no personal life. But I didn't know how to emote. I didn't know how to experience my feelings. I didn't know how to do all these basic needs that you're supposed to experience as at the time I was like 19 or 20 at the time, because I had my associates at that time. Anyway, slowly but surely, you and I have even talked about how in this period of my life, I started having phone call conversations with our abuser because at this time I did not realize this abuse. I just wanted to connect with him, so I would do phone calls with him, phone calls with mom. But I remember there were phone calls that we would have, and he started talking negatively about you. But I started to recognize he was talking negatively about you, my older brother, our younger brother, about my mom, our mom. So things like what I've mentioned in a previous episode of, oh yeah, younger brother is acting really stupid, or he got into this thing, or he spent X amount of money, he's being really dumb right now, or Zach and mom, they're off doing their thing again whenever you were in hometown versus uptown. And I started to kind of confront him on that a little bit, where I said, why would you talk negatively about them? Like, they're my relatives too. That's not cool, or whatever. Or I would try to back you up or defend you guys or whatever. That was like when I started noticing slight instances, but I kind of brushed it off. I think what subconsciously was going on too, I didn't want to deal with chaos. Hold on. Okay. Sorry.
Insert fun sound effect.
So sorry. Subconsciously, I was running away from chaos. If we look at now healed version of Ellie versus back then, I could see a timeline of whenever chaos or uncomfortability or an opportunity to grow would happen, I would avoid it. I didn't want to deal with it, and I didn't know how to cope with it, and we're just not going to go there because I don't want to. And if I could do that, I always went for that. And that happened in my academics. I dropped out of school because things were getting really hard, and I couldn't balance that. I ended up getting tendonitis in my hands, and I was playing violin, and my scholarship was on the line, and all of these things I just didn't know how to cope with that emotionally and mentally. I was in romantic relationships and they were getting difficult or hard, and I had an unhealthy attachment style of just anxiously attaching into them and being codependent and thinking that everything will be solved in those relationships. Obviously not. Now we're single and nothing's lessons learned in those things. But academics, relationships, there was no friendships. My relationship with you was basically non-existent at that time too. Like,
yeah, we had
all of these things.
You and I had a falling out, and that'll be another episode.
Right.
But yeah, you and I had a falling out.
But all of these things were piling up.
Yeah. And
so,
like, literally right before COVID, I left NorCal in January of 2020. And
I dropped out of school the fall before, fall 2019.
Yeah, you had dropped out. You were kind of doing your own thing. And you and I were living in the same
quadrant. We were like 20 minutes away.
Yeah, we were living in the same quadrant of the area, but we kind of had a falling out. And the last time I saw you, I met up with you at a Starbucks and was just like, yeah, I'm heading down. I had my car all packed and I'm like, I'm heading down.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to do what you're going to do. Good luck, you know. And I went back to our hometown and you stayed in Northern California. And yeah, so you and I didn't really communicate a lot, but I want to say COVID happened and you were kind of doing this traveling concert thing with your ex at the time. But then,
well, no,
yeah,
at the time relationship, now ex.
Correct, but I'm gonna call him your ex because you're not with him anymore. So
correct. No, I get it.
You didn't stay in Northern California. Eventually, you both left and did your own thing. So talk about
that was another chaotic thing. Long story short, I put myself in an environment where I wanted to be near band programs and my end goal at that timeline was to be a band director of some sort. And so I found myself in a relationship with someone who was in a band, and I was already being a teacher's aide at that school for a while. And long story short, that was a direct connection to a band program that would tour for a drum corps competition that would travel all across the country, like all the way to Colorado, and I forget the last destination. But when we were about to approach that season, there was an opportunity for that partner of mine to have a job in Texas, and I don't remember how much thought I put into it. I think I just went for it because at the time I believed I was going to be in this relationship for the long run. And so I said, yeah, we're going to move to Texas. I'm going to follow you. And at the time I was doing video productions virtually. I was doing video editing, freelancing. I was helping music programs develop virtual concerts and stuff like that. So I thought I had my career in a bag where I could work anywhere. And I was in this facade thinking that I can accomplish anything. And I was very delusional at that time. And so we found an apartment virtually. We agreed and signed everything. We decided to go on this tour thing. I was a videographer on this tour thing. And that lasted for about 2 months of just constant traveling. And when we finally settled, I got a one-way flight to Texas. Had to meet a friend somewhere else, but got to Texas, and probably like a week settling in. Of course, there's more details and logistics in that. About a week into settling into Texas, that's when I decided to call mom, and because my relationship with them had been fizzling out and not being consistent, not really connecting, not visiting for the past year or so. I think the last time I visited was like my last time before this tour, and it was a year previous that I maybe visited. So I just decided to say, hey, I need to figure this out on my own without your guys' contributions in my life right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fed into because our abuser made me believe certain things about mom, subconsciously not knowing that, and just believing that she's the enemy at this time. But also I had some sort of inkling of realizing, like, I'm butting heads with my abuser too. I'm butting heads with my father. I was viewing him as a father at the time. So I don't need any of this right now. And I just said, I'll call you if I need you. It was basically what I said. And I lived in Texas fall 2020 through fall 2021 into fall 2022. And that's wild. I only lived there for a year, and I got myself into more chaos and more trouble and more problems.
I think you were there for 2.
No. I was there 2021, and I moved back to 2022.
Okay, edit that out.
Oh. Ha. Awkward.
Yeah, and also at the 23 mark on my audio, you said our abuser's name and not abuser. So edit that out too.
Crud.
I told you to have your coffee. It's okay.
I didn't even have breakfast. It's sad.
Ugh.
Anyway.
No, but I thought you were there because I remember when you had, because I was living down in our home at the time, in our hometown parents' house during COVID, because I was working, and you had come before you were going to move to Texas. You had come like for your birthday to go and visit down south because you and our abuser had a birthday in the same month and you wanted to celebrate it with him. But I want to say though that was like contingent because your ex was going to go work for like the Texas school district. And so like you were like, okay, we want to make this trip. And then after we got to kind of like haul back and go. I might be misremembering it, but that's why I want to say like you were there for maybe like a year and a half or 2 years because like.
No.
No.
So what happened was I did that visit, but I was gone for like a year and a half because that was like my last hurrah visiting my hometown. And then after that trip, I had to deal with the logistics of, I planned all the logistics of where are we going to live in Texas 3 months from now of whenever that was.
Because he had the job guarantee, but you didn't. But you were hoping that through events and the possibility of moving, that something would come up for you.
Yeah, and I also actually I was that school specifics, like social media person, but at the time I didn't have that set in stone. All of this to say, that tour thing that was part of was in 2021. It was in the summer 2021. As soon as we were done, we flew to our finishing state was nowhere near Texas, so we had a one-way ticket to back to Texas.
Gotcha.
So fall 2021 was when I was officially moved into Texas, give or take. Like, talk about the prodigal son in the story in the Bible where just running away, trying to do your own thing. I'm remembering, I don't know what month, but let's say day 1, we moved things into Texas. We moved basics and all clothes and stuff that we need when we move from the tour. So we pre-moved to Texas, then went back to Northern California to start the tour, and then went through the entire country and finished and went back to Texas. So there was a pre-move in to Texas system, move back, do the tour. Chaos. Loved it, but chaos. I wouldn't do it again because I realized the motivation back then was I need to get away and we need to do this. I need to go. We're going to go. Okay. And I
Yeah.
just
I think
set up my reins and I went for it.
that's a very nice description, chaos, that you were. And I'll be frank, there was times where mom and I, we wouldn't necessarily like talk about you, but because you weren't talking really to either one of us, we'd be like, hey, have you heard from Ellie? Or have you seen kind of like anything on social media, what she's doing? And I'd be like, I don't know, man. Her life is so chaotic. I don't know if she's working. I don't know if she's in another country. like like chaos was your best friend at that time. That like being so preoccupied with something was like almost like a drug, because it was allowing you to chase something and avoid like the whole
Reality.
issue, which was the family toxic situation, and
well, and a thing that I didn't want to admit either was at this timeline I was also an alcoholic. And I was addicted to running away with emotionally running away with substances. So, in my group, I was the youngest in the circle that I was in. So, it became a game with those around me wanting, let's get Ellie drunk was the tune for the night. And, I got into marijuana and getting high and getting crossfaded of getting drunk and high. And I was misusing relationships. On top of being career chaotic, I was emotionally chaotic with relationships, with substances, and just nutty. And then when we settled into California, that utter chaos as well, and running by the seat of my pants of just figuring out career, income. I ended up getting a side gig. I got into myself in a relationship that got me in trouble, and there's just one thing after another, after another, after another. And there finally came a point where I got myself in an emotional affair in a relationship as well, and it just got really chaotic where I ended up needing to move out and had my own place and experience having my own apartment. I was also starving myself because I didn't know how to eat meals and prepare meals and cook meals and stuff like that. But there was a moment, I want to say probably about May 2022. This is not even the full year of me being in Texas, where I was playing music on my TV and I was doing some random thing, and a song came on, and it was a Christian song, and it was talking about, in the perspective of God writing a letter to us, of just saying, I sent my only son to be with who I love, and you are all that I want, the wonders of it all, and I love you in the morning and the evening. And it was just a really beautiful song. But in that moment, I needed to hear those words, because I think I have a video somewhere on my phone. I just started bawling my eyes, and I couldn't do anything else. I was stuck listening to that song. It was like a lyrical music video, so I'm reading what it's saying, and I'm just bawling my eyes. And I decide to look in one of my tubs of storage that I have in my room, and I find one of my Bibles, and I'm reading through it, and it was one of the Bibles that either mom or father had written in, and I'm reading it, and I'm just realizing I need to stop running away. And I didn't know what that meant entirely, because I didn't have a relationship with mom or our abuser. But it was just coming into sense of, I'm running away from this perfect love that God has for me. I don't know where I could find that, though. And so that happened, and I didn't call mom or our abuser yet. that happened, and I just needed to sit with that. I was in like my third relationship in Texas at this time, and I was trying to make this relationship work. And there came a point where I was dealing with a stalker, and I had to move out of my apartment and live out of my car and try to make this work with this new relationship. Again, that chaos was still underlying and still happening after this amazing breakthrough happened. But I decided to call mom and our abuser, and I said, probably the beginning of beginning of July, I'm sorry, where I said, I don't have money. I was fired from my job. I'm working on unemployment. I am living out of my car. I don't have money for food. I have piled up toll bills that I can't pay. Like, I'm at ground zero and I don't know what to do. And mom said, okay, I will go ahead and get a ticket out to you. I'll fly out to you, and we're going to figure this out. And she literally stopped what she is texting me updates. Hey, I'm going to come out at this day. I'll help you do X, Y, and Z. We're going to start driving at this time, so that way we can figure it out. And it literally was like my escape plan from coming back home. And still not really fully registering what's going on. Like, I don't know if you remember anything, if mom mentioned anything about this to you. I don't know what you remember or recall from that before I came back to hometown.
In regards to the call, or
just me coming back? Why am I coming back?
I know that you... Well, I know that you, at one point before coming back, you did some over-the-phone spiritual healing. And I don't know if that was...
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
I was kind of hoping you would bring that part up, because that was one of... That I feel like started... was like
start stuff.
The starting point of you realizing, wow, there's some stuff going on. I might not know what it is. I don't have a name for it.
Yeah.
I whatever, but I'll let you talk about that. I do know is before you well, mom told me that when you called them, and she volunteered to come get you, she told me, because again, this was still during COVID. Granted, 2022, at least where we were at, was kind of like, yeah, it's still COVID, but we're not really adhering to social distancing and closing the state down. But everyone had gotten really used to online shopping and picking up like Walmart and Target and stuff like that. Yeah. And so our mom had picked up an order, and someone who bagged it accidentally put Dramamine in it. And Dramamine, so our mom is very motion sick prone. She cannot be in a car in the back. She has to be up front. She can't be on her phone. She can't be reading. She can't be on a roller coaster, anything that moves. No. She can't be on a boat. She will just get so sick, and she'll be out for days. And so in order for her to travel on a plane, because she has done before, she has to get Dramamine. And so I don't know how long it was before the call that my sister had, but she got Dramamine. And she even asked Walmart, like, do you want me to like give this back to you? And they're like, no, you already have it. Like, whatever. And so when the call was there,
it was accidental.
It was accidental from the clerk, but with God knew that she was going to need to get on a plane, and he, for free, gave her Dramamine to be something that she would. So mom told me, she's like, only God could do that. And she's like, I should have known that something was going to happen, because here I have free Dramamine, and that's the exact thing that I would have had to buy in order to fly out and go get your sister.
I want to say that happened probably like a week or two before. Yeah. Mom told me that story when we were driving, but I forgot what I need to tell is that spiritual breakthrough that I had. After the video, that song that played, I ended up making a video for it just to do an interpretation of what that song meant for me. But in that season, when I was making that video of that song, I got reconnected to a person back when I lived in Northern California, and I helped them at the church. I was doing some freelance video work for them still because they needed a video editor. That's how I helped the church originally. And when COVID hit, they still needed a video editor. So I helped them virtually. But I connected with them saying, like, hey, I feel like I need to do some work. I had this breakthrough that happened, and I'm not entirely sure what my next steps are or what do I do. And he got me connected to one of our college mates' parents has a ministry in spiritual freedom. And what does that look like? And I didn't know what I was walking into. I really didn't. But I'm so thankful of the openness that everyone had. There was no judgment. There was no shame, no guilt, no nothing of that sort. And I walked through this journey of learning how to just see breakthrough in not only your own life, but in those around you. And how do you go about that? And that really just started to rewire some beliefs I had of myself. And we finished this entire book with saying a vision statement of ourselves. And, I'm Ellie. I am a creative person, and I know that God has put these gifts into me to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And in this, the coaches are husband and wife, and they suggested me to go to a practice of an individual to do spiritual breakthroughs. And it was called a lie buster, because they saw in me believing lies about my life that are not true. And I didn't know what that meant. I just said, sure, I believe you guys. I trust you guys. I know that they wouldn't set me up for failure, because we built that relationship at this point. And yeah, I'm getting my timeline all mixed up here, but hope whoever's listening can stay with me on this. When I went through this session, it was like a counseling session for anyone who's done any counseling sessions and is not used to the idea of spiritual counseling sessions. But this session was spiritually led, which meant, praying to God and saying, God, we open this conversation with you, and you intervene in this, and we want to hear from you, and we want to see any breakthroughs that you want to break through today. And the enemy has no bounds to touch what we are working on, and that this is entirely in the Lord's hands. Setting the layout for the Lord to do what he's famous for, within what I'm wanting to work in. And that session was incredible. What I took out of that session was a couple of things. One, the gal that was helping me or guiding me, she said, I think we need to do some generational breakthroughs right now. And she just step by step gave me an understanding of, so this is what's going to look like. This is what we're going to pray about. But we're going to go through generations. Because I basically shared with her some symptoms of things that I noticed with myself. And she felt spiritually led to go into generational curses and breaking those down so that they're not being held anymore. And I can't remember what my symptoms were, but I remember that we had to go through the lineage of my mom and the lineage of my father. And we had to go back 6 for one of them and go back 7 for the other. And all that looked like was going back in these generations and spiritually breaking the strongholds that these generations agreed on 7 generations ago. And all that did was bring freedom, not only within me, but freedom within the generations before. So generations for my mom, and Lord willing, generations for our father, if he's willing to accept it. But once we did that, we finished the session. And this is one of my favorite memories that I have of reconnecting my relationship with the Lord, because mind you, I hadn't had a relationship with the Lord for 2+ years at this point. And the Lord speaks to me in visions, and in this vision I was experiencing his angels hugging me and like welcoming me back into relationship with him again. I'm gonna cry. And I can see the Lord at the end, and it's like minions. His angels were minions, but he is just obviously taller than the rest of them. So I can see him at the end of the line, but this line is super long. But the Lord is willing to wait and be patient. And so everybody's hugging me, congratulating me. I'm so happy that you're here, Ellie. Times however long it took for the time to be with me and the Lord. And when the Lord came up to me, he picked me up and he spun me around. And he says, I'm so excited to have you, Ellie. I'm so excited to be with you again. And all it took was just a little bit of trust to just fall into what my friends who had the Lord in their best interest of hearts to also break through whatever spiritual holds that I had at the time. So that whole story happened before or during, I can't remember, calling momming in our abuser and whatnot. And so when it came time for mom to pick me up, I picked her up from the the airport, and went down to business. Mama, if Zach, you tell me if this is okay to share, at this time didn't have a lot of funds, didn't have a lot of money, so she gave as much as she could. But something that I appreciate was that, you may or may not know this, when she landed and I brought her back to my apartment, and I felt safe with her there, being that stalker situation, I'm showing her all of I had a hospital bill from a visit that I had. I had a gazillion toll bills and whatnot. She paid for everything, like everything. And just to get me out of that hole, and that moment that I could breathe, and there's so much power that finances have, and I didn't realize that this had anyways. And we're talking like 4 digits at least of bills and debt. Yeah. And my mom decided to put herself in that position just so I could breathe a little bit more. And she could tell you, when we were in that apartment, I can't remember why we decided not to drive yet until like 2 days later. But I forgot that I had told the apartment that I was leaving, and I told mom, like, hey, they may or may not turn off the AC. And so we're in this, Texas is like 112 degrees minimum over there. And my mom would tell you that the 2 nights that we were there, she couldn't sleep, because whenever she woke up, she's just praying, God, thank you that the AC's still on, and golly, because I forgot me being negligent of that detail. So anyway, we started driving. I had to leave abruptly, so we put everything in a storage unit, and I'll come back later for it. I'm just gonna grab the necessities of clothes, and I forgot what else I brought. I didn't bring any instruments or the computer or the stuff like that. Like, I just grab clothes and go. And started driving. An hour into this drive, mind you, 30 some odd hours or so of driving, an hour into this drive.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think I know why you guys waited. It was because,
tell me,
it would take about 2 to 3 days to drive back from Texas to California. But on our grandfather's side, there's family in New Mexico. And
Yes, that's what
so
it was.
mom was like, this may not be the whole reason, because I know you were super busy, and your boyfriend at the time had like he got some head injury and had to go to the urgent care or
Oh, I
whatever.
forgot about that.
But
Yeah.
I think it was just organized so that way, by the time, if you mapped it out, if you just went up to New Mexico, you would only lose like 5 to 6 hours. And
Yeah, that's how we did it.
It was a chance to go see family for like a weekend. So it would take you like a week
Yeah.
to get back, instead of pushing it for a few days, because you weren't working, mom wasn't working. It wasn't like there was a deadline to get back to California, but it was like, let's just escape and go be around
Yeah.
family, whom of which you had never met, really.
Nope.
Um,
Nope, but they loved me.
but
And it was amazing.
yeah, but I think that's why it was like it was sectioned off in a way where it would work for the family to get time to kind of arrange it, so that way they could host you guys. And I'm sure there's other reasons
because
too
of the weekend.
of why you kind of like didn't just leave immediately, but I know that was one of the things. It was like, oh, let's go back to New Mexico and kind of just take our time going
you're
back.
right. Because the boyfriend, now ex at the time, had a head injury, and he had staples in his head, and he needed to wait, and he was willing to wait with us just to make sure that the whole apartment situation was safe. And so we just stayed for 2 whatever days. And I think the traveling over there too, it had to be at a weekend. So like you're right. Basically, I believe you mentioned all the accounts for why we didn't leave right away. But we leave, okay? We start driving. And I think this will be the greatest point to finish this episode at, is that an hour into the driving with mom, she's driving my car, and we just start talking. And I remember just starting talking about the breakthrough that I had of, there's this song that I build a music video to, and it really meant a lot to me. And I know I can't show it to her because she's driving, but let me play the song for you. And so I did. And then it just naturally came to start talking about, Mom, I was part of this like spiritual class that I was in. And this is what I learned. And I shared with her the vision I had about the Lord hugging me and spinning me around and saying that I love you, Ellie. I've always loved you. And it was for the fact that Mom and I wasn't interested in building a relationship with her, and our relationship was so estranged. Things just naturally flowed. And Mom, I want to share this with you. Which was really beautiful, just to experience being able to show your parent, like, listen, look what happened. Look what God did. Because I knew that was something very important for Mom and I once upon a time, about God. Look what God did.
Right.
You know? And we start sharing more. And then literally, I am kidding. If you talk to Mom today, instantaneously, the Lord just threw away all of the grudges that I had, or resentment, or I don't know what Mom had towards me, whatever it was. Instantly, it was all gone. And there was freedom to be able to say, Mom, I don't know what's happened, but I get it now. And that's all I said, really. And I said, I don't know, but I feel like I need to start telling you about my abuser. Didn't call him that in the moment.
Right.
But I said, Mom, I'm remembering that my abuser would say these things, or he would say X, Y, and Z, but I knew that wasn't the truth, but I don't know what is the truth. And Mom would say, baby, this is what the truth is. but what about X, Y, and Z? No, Ellie, it was this thing right here. So it became, the whole drive became, Mom, this is what I remembered, but I don't think that's right. And Mom would say, you're right, because it was this, or it was because of that. It felt like we more than rekindled our relationship. And in this drive, it felt like it went by quickly. But hers and my relationship was no longer estranged over that time period. And then in the car ride, I was getting nervous of going back home because, wait a minute.
We're going to hell?
We're going back to the place that I am discovering, and Mom has known this for so long because she has the answers here, so she must have known it for a while. Wait a minute. So we're going back home to the person that I am realizing has been lying to me all of these years. He must be lying, because if I'm asking these questions and my mom is saying, no, this is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. So we put that on pause. We went to New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a beautiful thing, because I didn't realize at the time, but in this journey of chaos that I just explained in this whole episode so far, I'm finally at a point where I don't need to be running anymore. And so if you asked Mom, I slept the first day and a half that I was there at this house, because I could finally, I'm safe now. So I'm being loved by these strangers, but they weren't strangers. Their love was familiar, if that makes any sense. And one of my favorite things is that one of the dinners we went to is one of our grandpa's brothers, and he looks exactly the same. I'm like, oh my God, that's Grandpa.
Yeah.
But fast forward, the reality of I needed to be loved that way before going back to our hometown. I needed to know what that unconditional love was. And I got to experience that with 6, 7, 8 people. And they just loved me because I was part of Mom's family.
Mm-hmm.
I was part of Mom. That was the only reason why. And just loved in their food, loved in their stories, loved in them hugging me, and just the time that we had with each other. But then it started to settle in that we needed to go back home. And
yeah,
I don't know what I'm walking into.
Mm-hmm.
I now am realizing what I've been running away from after 2018 to 2022. What's that math?
4.
Yeah, 4 years. Because in 2018 is when I moved up north.
Mm-hmm.
So I had been running away for 4 years across so many different rhymes and reasons.
Yeah.
And now we're going back to the house where I'm realizing now this is what I've been running away from. Crap.
Well, and I don't mean to speak out of term here. I know at the time, because you had told me when you had gotten back, and in fact, I think you stopped at my place before going back, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Oh, no.
Does it go say hi to you?
I remember. No, sorry. I was about to say, I remember. Oh, no, I remember that day because I got mad at our abuser while you guys were there.
Oh.
Huh.
Oh, what happened?
Well, hold on. Okay, one thing at a time. Because what I was bringing up was you were still hopeful
Oh yeah.
that the transformative healing process that you and your mother had could happen with your abuser. So you were both, you had on both hands hope, and on the other hand this realization that your abuser is the problem, your abuser has been
Yeah.
lying. But in the same hand again, you're just like, well, but there's possibility. So
Right.
hesitancy but hopeful, concern but hopeful. I'm not saying now
Yeah.
how you feel, but at the time you had a, I hope things could come together. And I remember
No, I even had a does he even know the extent of what he's done?
well, yeah, but that's kind of like where that hope was. Like you were hoping that
Yeah.
that there this breakthrough, and you talking about your healing, and you talking about this process with yourself, that he would be inspired, that he would change, he would see the error of his ways, he would repent, family would be back
Right.
together. Like there was just all this hope that you had. And I remember this whole point that I'm trying to bring up, when you got back to the house,
Okay.
um you, within minutes, meaning you got out of the car, you said hi to him. Our brother was still at the house at the time. Um, you and mom had decided, because I think you came back like during the week, like a Wednesday or Tuesday or something like
Yeah.
that. So
Right.
you had, mom had come into the house and told our abuser, in a day or two, or very soon, we're gonna go and visit her parents, your grandparents, our mother's
Mm-hmm.
father and mother, because you hadn't seen them
Yes.
additionally in like
And like
4 years. And so it was like, hey,
right.
while we're here, we're gonna do a quick turnaround and go travel about 2 to 3 hours to go visit grandparents, because our grandparents had moved, they had retired and they moved to the California coast. Um,
Yeah.
so you were like, yeah, I'm gonna go see grandma and grandpa. And then as soon as mom left the room, what did he tell you?
Mhm.
So okay, so just for context, Ellie's now back in her hometown, in her home, where all this chaos has been, right?
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
Everything that's
And
festered, everything that has been abused, everything that she has experienced, she was running away from, she's now back. She's having concerns, but she's also like, Lord, I'm hoping and praying for breakthrough. And what does her
right.
abuser tell her as soon as her mother walks out of the room?
Yeah, the first thing that he says is, "So your mom's making you go visit her parents?"
Yeah, like, so I think what
And
he
and
actually
so I
said was, so you're getting roped into that? She roped you in to
oh
go see your
yes,
grandparents?
something to that degree, like
Yeah, it wasn't like this,
so
oh, interesting, you're gonna go visit your grandparents. It was more of like a, damn, you're back and she's making you do
you're
this.
already leaving. Yeah.
More,
And so
not
I
just you're
cock
already leaving, just more of like, dang, your mother sucks, because she's gonna make you
right.
go do something you clearly don't want to do, right? Like that's what he was trying to like get you to agree to.
Insinuate.
Like, dang, how dare your mom tell you, a grown girl, what you're gonna do? This must suck, because I know you, as Ellie, my daughter, you definitely don't want to go see your grandparents, right? But your mom's making you do this.
And so
And
I looked at him. I said, I'm like, I no, I didn't get roped into this.
yeah.
I want to go. It was my idea.
Mm-hmm.
It was my idea.
Mm-hmm. And that was the first thing he told you. Maybe, I'm sure it wasn't like the first thing. I'm sure he said, hello, good to see
No,
you, here's a hug.
that was the first thing. That was the first thing that he said to me as soon as mom left.
Right. Within minutes
As soon
of.
as mom left, when it was just him and I,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing that he wanted to do was plant that mom is roping me into doing things I don't want to do
Because that's what he had done forever.
for 20 plus years.
And so it was like, cool, you're back. We're gonna continue where we left off. Because at the
Yeah.
time, I know we hadn't really gone into it because there's so much overlap, but I know at the time when you had put up a barrier with your parents when you were in Texas and you're like, "Hey, I'm only going to call you when I need something from you." Or like if I'm in danger, right? I'm going to go live my life.
Right.
There were times where mom and him were talking and she'd be like, "Hey, have you heard from Ellie?" And he'd be like, "She doesn't call me anymore. She doesn't want a relationship with me." Like he was angry that you put up this boundary, but as soon as you were back, it was like he went back to his old ways with you.
Yeah.
And he didn't come to you like, "Hey, we need to talk because I'm hurt," or like, whatever. He just picked off right where he left off, and yeah, like, and I remember when I heard that, there was a part of me that died a little bit because I was like, man, Ellie's hope is gonna go down the drain one day because how dare you?
How dare you?
Who do you think you are? And how evil is that to, instead of being grateful that you're home, and instead of being happy that his wife left to come get you and bring you back,
Yeah.
There wasn't even like this mild celebration of, "You're back, let's go out to eat. I'm off work in a few hours. Let's go get ice cream. Let's."
Right.
Let's.
Yeah.
There was no happiness of your return
No.
like the prodigal son. I will say
No.
there was a little bit of a celebration because that's why I got mad at him when you guys had come to see me first before going to the house. It was because you were coming back and he wanted to do like a barbecue potluck at the house. And I had told him I had a prior commitment, but I said at most, like the earliest I could be back would be like 8:00, but at that point I wouldn't be expecting to eat because that's too late for me to eat and it's too late for you guys to hold off on a celebration. And he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine, whatever." And so when mom and you had come to my house and you were leaving, mom said, "Oh yeah, so he said you're gonna be there at 6, and that you would leave early to come. And I was like, "No." And I said, "This is why I don't like talking to him. Because he does not." It's like you say something and he makes up his own reality. That's not what I said. Because now you're making it as if I'm going to come, and when I have to say, "Hey, I can't," I'm the bad guy because he's already advertised it to people in the family that I'm going to be there, even though I told them I probably can't because I had a prior commitment. No offense to my sister, but I had something to do that I made a commitment to, and and so
he was
yeah. So
he was proving himself.
Yeah.
He was proving himself.
So he
was showing what we were just talking about.
Yeah. In the same day, he makes up a fallacy that I can't. The reality will be that I can't come to see my sister who just came back, right? So he gets to be the hero for making this barbecue, and the older brother can't come because Zach has some prior commitment. So he lies to the family about my being there or lack of being there. And then when you come home, he's like, "Dang, your mom's making you go see your grandparents? How awful." And it's just like, I laugh because it's like, man, you know how much energy and effort it takes to destroy something and like weave this huge web of toxicity. Like it takes so much effort and energy to do that. And it's like,
no, he literally had plans to do that from the get-go, as evident as what we just shared. Like,
I'm getting mad. I'm mad on your behalf. It's just like, because again, it's like, I know, and we've kind of talked about this in prior episodes, maybe not as directly as I'm about to say. Even when Ellie was not having a good time in her relationship with her mother. So we're going back years. We're going back still probably till when Ellie was living in Northern California and she would come down and visit on
Right.
holidays or whenever she wanted to come down.
Right.
Um, she would get in fights with her parents.
Yeah.
In fact, there was one
Yep.
time they went in the backyard and I was there, not in the backyard, but I could hear them yelling in the backyard. And
Yeah.
Ellie was thinking that her mom was the bad one, yet our mom was still fighting and offering to pay. Mom doesn't have a job. Her husband has the job, but she was willing to
Yeah.
pay for her husband, who has the money and resources, and her daughter to go to counseling together so that their relationship could work.
Yep.
And so it's like, so here you have a parent who's like losing a battle in a way, like, hey, I'm losing a relationship with my
Yeah.
child, but I would still move mountains and be willing to do what I can for her relationship with her father to be
Yep.
restored, right? In the midst of all this
Yep.
chaos. And when Ellie comes home in 2022, that is not reciprocated. And in fact,
Not at all. Obliterated.
her abuser is like, let's go back to the old way where your mom's the bad guy. So and how warped is that? Because like if you looked at, like, I'm thinking about this now, it's like if you look at that, Ellie, your mom has been the bad guy this whole time. However, she's the one who had to take drugs to get on a plane so she wouldn't vomit everywhere to come get you, paid your bills, paid these things, rescued you, brought you back. And I stayed here. I'm the hero.
Yeah.
I stayed behind because I couldn't come get you. But the evil one, the bad person, she's the one who came and got you. So, oh, someone's at the front door. Sorry, I'm getting a notification on my phone. But how maddening is that? It's like
It's
to go and facilitate that reality. And yet
you said it best. She literally moved mountains
Mhm.
multiple times upon multiple times. And you got to I'm sure we're going to talk about mom in a later episode, but you got to imagine mom was experiencing my trauma in the car ride back home and me saying, this is what I was told. This is what I remember. And she said, no, that's not the truth. Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine the weight that mom was bearing of realizing, oh my gosh, this is what my husband has been telling our children?
Yeah, I mean, I and we'll have our mom on one day. And I say that because I've talked with her, because I've asked her, like, have you watched any of the episodes? And she's like, no, I can't yet. She's like, it's gonna be too difficult for her right now to watch it. But I talked to her a little bit kind of about some of the episodes, and she's like, wait, that's what you said? That's not my perspective. And I'm like, okay, well then you're gonna have to come on and clear the air, because it's like, and it's hard because there's times in the moment where you go back a year, this was what your perspective was, and this is the things that you were saying, and now you believe something different, but the person remembers what you said a year ago, right? And wasn't there to see the inner workings of your transformation. So like there's a lot that can get lost in translation, and we're not here to put a stamp of approval like this is what our mom believes. She has her own history and her own trauma, like Ellie said, and her own restoration process. But what I will say is that mom knew that things were being said behind her back. She didn't know what. She didn't know specifics. She didn't know the gravity of what was being said, but she knew that it couldn't be good if her relationship with her children, despite her best efforts, was failing, and that her husband was the reason why. then it couldn't have been good information he was telling his children about her. So,
Yeah.
yes, I agree with you. I'm sure mom's heart was broken in a lot of ways, but I also will say I'm
Sure.
sure a lot of it wasn't brand new in terms of the impact. She already had the impact. She just didn't know to the
She
degree of what was being said.
she had more confirmation of
Yeah.
what she believed and what
Oh yeah.
content I shared was new.
No, I mean, and
And
and that's what happens. And I'll say, like, I know I'm talking a lot, and it might come off like I'm like, I don't know, like maybe I'm coming off as a jerk, or I'm coming off as insensitive because I'm like, no, talk about this, talk about this, talk about this. I've been dying
I
for
know.
years to talk about stuff because so much has been in hiding, you know?
Yeah.
In terms like I was living out my freedom, but that was not being broadcast to my siblings. I was not talking with them about my experience, my struggles, my breakthroughs, or
Right.
anything, you know. And so I was just so excited. It's like we can finally talk about this. We can finally like
Yeah.
address the elephant in the room, and not have to pretend that it's not there anymore. We can finally talk about this stuff, you know. And case in point, like we still find stories of like the time we talked about in a prior episode, like the time where Ellie was living in Northern California and her father went to go see her, drove up to go see
Yeah.
her. Our mom will have to kind of confirm the details here, but the reason why, if I'm understanding the story correctly, your birthday and another family member's birthday was around the same time, and this family member is a child, so she's like a grandbaby in the family.
Yeah.
And so because you were gone, it's like we're gonna go celebrate this child's birthday this weekend.
Right.
And um he decided that he wasn't gonna go, and he was gonna take it upon
Right.
himself to go see you by himself. And I think there was only one working car at the time. I don't know if he took a
Yeah.
rental, I can't remember, but like he kind of left our
He did a
mom
rental.
to be
Did a rental.
okay. But he left her alone
Yep.
to go by herself to this party. And I was in NorCal at the time as well. And
But you didn't know.
no, I had no idea that he was in town or that they celebrated her birthday. In fact, I helped her
Yeah.
ex-boyfriend set up a birthday party for her at the time. Um,
Oh yeah, you did. I forgot about
yeah, I
that.
did. But anyway,
You're
like
so
you
nice.
but you learn in hindsight of like, no, it wasn't just he went to come up and visit you for your birthday as a kind
Yeah.
gesture gesture.
Uh,
He There was so much more to that strategic choice of his. It was to
right.
make
It's
it
all
look like
strategy.
mom didn't want to come,
Yeah.
that she cared more about this child as opposed to her actual child, you know. And that wasn't the case at all. But even things that seem so innocently just like, oh, wasn't that a nice thing? My dad came up and visited me. It's like, no, there was strategy behind that. Like there was
Yeah.
levels of choices behind that, you know. And
Yeah.
even if they might seem so small, they're really not. And
Right.
so this is just me kind of just saying, like, I always appreciate talking about these things because one, it causes you to go back and
Right.
relive it and really challenge yourself and go, is that what really happened? And also it makes you have to come to the realization and the um kind of like your own proclamation of, yeah, this was that bad, you know.
Yeah.
This wasn't just I took it too personally, or it's me blowing things out of proportion. It's like, oh yeah, this reaffirms why where I currently stand is where I stand, you know.
Right.
And it took you, you know, and we'll talk about this in the next two sessions that we have,
Yeah.
It took you about a year before you were finally like, I'm done. Maybe a little bit
Yeah.
longer, but like there was so
Nah,
much that happened with.
no, it took less. It took less than a year.
It took less than a year for you to move out, but there was still the hope that he would.
I don't think you're remembering that right.
No, I remember it right because spoiler alert, we'll talk about this at another episode. Because when I had come home for my birthday in 2024, you were still hopeful of trying to talk to your abuser and be like, I need to set up another counseling session because I owe him an explanation of my healing story. And I was like, no, you don't. And you're like, yes, I do. And I've been doing all these things where I've been working with people to help me walk in my spiritual gifts and healing. And I'm like, I know. And he's actually done ministry with those people and he's still where he's at.
Yeah.
And you were like,
Yeah.
dang it. Like, not like a dang it kind of thing.
Oh.
But it was like,
Yeah, that's right.
there was still a semblance of what if? What if I did this? And it's like, and it's not my job as her brother to tell her what to do. And I hope she never feels that way. I will give her strong feedback. But at the end of the day, it's
It's very strong.
It's her choice.
It's very strong.
Well, because there have been conversations that we've had, and again, this will go into later, not in like the next sessions, but in later episodes where we just kind of talk about our perspectives and we talk about, what we think about our abuser in terms of what he's dealing with and the manipulation that he used and whatnot. But there have been times I've had to tell my sister, like, hey, like I'll state it for right now, where I'm like, even if he has a come to Jesus moment, even if he gets restored, even if his disorders, his spiritual attacks, his whole persona just dissipates because God heals him, I don't want relationship with him. That's my stance. That's my boundary. That's my declaration. That's my creed. So for me, granted, that's how I feel now. I can't tell what's going to happen in the future.
Sure.
Now, even if he gets healed, that's great. Good for him. It means that if I'm around him, it's not going to be World War III and I don't have to walk on eggshells, and that'll be great. But I don't want relationship with this person. So for me, as her older brother, it's like, okay, it doesn't matter what he does for me. It doesn't matter if he gets better, if he doesn't, if he makes a little bit of progress, if he goes to this counselor, if he goes to this seminar to get healing, if he calls these people. Like, to me, it doesn't, like, that doesn't change for me my position. That's great for him. Good for him. Love that for him. If he gets better, that's great. But for me, my stance will be this. And that wasn't my sister's stance. My sister had a very different position at the time. So we had to have conversations where I'm like, hey, if this is where you want to go, if you want to keep trying to have a relationship with this guy, that's going to be on you. I need to be out of it. Because of my stance. And if you want to go down this route, I need to remove myself because I don't want to be a hindrance to it, because I don't want that for me. I don't want that for you. But what you're choosing, I'm not going down that road, And so we've had a lot of honest conversations throughout probably like the last 2 years where, Ellie has had her revelations, had her healing, and was going through like, what do I do? How do I have a relationship with this guy? So there's still a ton for us to talk to you, our audience, kind of just about our mindset, our perspective. At least yawning.
I'm tired. I'm sorry.
She's tired of me talking.
I love you.
There's a lot, and this is what happens when there's been 25 plus years of abuse. This wasn't like our abuser was a nice person and he got into a car accident and his brain just got funky and we're trying to figure out what to do about this. There's 25 years of unearthing lies, manipulation, abuse, and we have a lot to talk about because that's a lot of years for both of us.
Well,
and
it's still interesting. I say interesting because it's still newer for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still walking through a life with the truth.
Right.
That's so brand new.
Mm-hmm.
What, we're talking 2 years or so. Not even, really.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's still new, and and that'll be part of our walk away story of like what it took for us to finally say no. I have my own story. I have my own sequence of events that led up to that, just as Ellie has hers. And my hope in both of those episodes is that our listeners will understand, despite the fact that we're two different people and experience two different sets of abuse by one person, that we came to the conclusion that we came to because it was either that or be at the mercy of this abuse for the rest of our lives. And Ellie and I took two different vehicles to get there. But we both made our choices.
What are you talking about?
Huh?
Two different trails, even.
Two different highways on two different vehicles. Yep. I took a Tesla and she took a 1969 Volkswagen, and she doesn't know how to do stick shift, but she got there.
Nope.
It took a while, but she got there. I mean, because again, like she said, she the abuse is still a new revelation in terms of history for her. And she'll have different perspectives 10 years from now than she does now. But I'm excited to talk about kind of the last stages of our story, which is our walk away. And then I'm also really excited to talk about the episodes that we have planned for after that, because I think once we kind of get away from our history, we get to kind of deep dive a lot into the intricacies of abuse and what the Bible says, and so much more. And so I'm really excited to kind of talk about that. It'll be a lot more conversational than kind of how these episodes have been. And
it's gonna be good.
No, it'll be good. One of the ones I'm looking forward to, it'll be a very interesting conversation, is amongst our mother, Ellie, and myself. We all three have different beliefs as to what's wrong with him.
Yeah.
And they're not so drastically different, but some of us have stronger perspectives and beliefs that it's one issue or two, whereas some of them are like, no, I think it's more of this is the issue. And
spiritual versus mental versus disease versus...
so and that'll be really interesting to talk about, because sometimes those differences can be a reason why people will not walk away. And so like I remember there was one time last year, I forget why, but we were on the phone, my mom, sister, and I, and we were talking, and our mom was talking about like, oh, I think this is what's wrong with him, and my sister's like, I think this is what's wrong with him, and these are the issues. And I was like, guys, whatever the issue is, he's not safe.
I remember that.
Like regardless if he's a victim or not, he's not safe. We don't need to be around him. If you want to be around him, that's your choice, but like however you want to slice and dice it, he's not safe for any of us. He wants to go after us. He believes that we are evil. So does it matter how he got there, or does it matter that this is what his stance is? And so I think but that's worthy of being talked about, because I would say part of your perspective and why it was so hard for your realization, like the hardship of your realization of who your abuser is and the abuse that he had done to you, was the beliefs that you had of like, no, I think he can break through with this. I think he can overcome this, and ties into the perspective that you have or have had
Yeah.
with why he is the way he is, you know? And
Yeah.
and I think that's just good to kind of talk about. Whether one of us is right or wrong isn't the point. It's just worthy of being talked about, you know?
Yeah.
Um, because those are the things that can keep us rooted in our decisions to not leave, in our decisions to maintain abuse and stay in the circle of it, the cycle of it, I mean. Um, and it's really important, I think, to talk about that stuff and challenge that stuff. So, you know, and I think Ellie's story is super awesome because, her healing story and her recognizing the abuse was so instantaneous.
Mm.
I needed a year and a half of counseling and realizing, who it was that I was working with and trying to break free from that and accept that, and Ellie got it in like 30 hours, She didn't heal from it, but that revelation of holy crap, was like so instantaneous. And so like,
That was all God. That was not me.
no, I know, but that's a gift.
Yeah.
It didn't take you so
Yeah.
long to be like, is that really the truth? Is that really what happened? Am I just not remembering it correctly? Like it was just the Holy Spirit intervened and the truth was
Yep.
revealed.
Yep.
And and you got to have that with mom. I didn't, you
Yeah.
know. And it's not a competition. I'm not trying to come off that way. You got to have that with your mom, who was able to heal your guys' relationship together in that moment
Yeah.
and come
Yep.
together, and she was able to affirm
Yes.
that you didn't have all the facts, and I was having to have my healing and my discovery as a 17-year-old all on my own.
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody with me, so even our walk
Yeah, that's the
through.
other thing. You were dealing with that at 17. I was dealing with that when I turned 25, right before 25.
Mm-hmm.
That's another aspect into that as well.
No,
And talking about
sure.
perception.
No, for sure. But I mean, but again, too, it's also interesting because like your abuser, even though I think like you subconsciously had problems with him, you up until that point had a quote unquote good relationship, meaning father
Yeah.
daughter. You guys did stuff together. He didn't treat you the same way he treated mom and me, whereas I never felt loved by him, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's a
I'm
completely
sorry.
different thing, but it's still ironic that it took me longer to kind of figure that out for
Yeah.
my, not figure it out, but it was harder for me to accept that that was a thing. Whereas for you, you're like, yeah, he's my dad and I like him and I love him. But I just got healed, or I just got everything confirmed for me. And, um, so there's all these different
Drastically
layers
different.
to again how we both got to where we're at now and our stance, and it's a different Olympic sport, you know. But that's what's so interesting. I feel like that's what's just so unique because we were two people who experienced two different types of abuse by the same person, you know. And it came out differently, it looked different,
Yeah.
um, but we still ended up at the same conclusion. Um,
Yeah.
that the best thing for us was to walk away and hold to it. So, um,
Thank
anything
you
else you
for
want to
listening
say?
this far so far.
What was that?
Um,
Oh, sorry.
I just said thank you for listening so far, this
Yeah.
far,
Yeah.
whatever the verbiage is. Anything else that I have to say? I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm hungry. Um, I hope listeners are not tired of our stories, though. That's not what I'm saying. I'm tired of. I'm just tired. Um, but I'm excited to see. The next couple of episodes are finishing up our stories. And what that's gonna look like as we traject into the next things. And I will say this. The enemy does not like what we're talking about. And I speak into that because I've had multiple interventions where the enemy is trying to scare, distract. For me, I don't know if he's done anything for you, Zach, but I literally had a dream regarding our younger brother and my abuser. Not last night, but the night before. So if our listeners are thinking that our stories are unimaginable, unthinkable, and all those things, yeah. And yet the enemy still doesn't like us speaking into our freedom because there's worth and value in our freedom and impact, and not just our freedom, but others' freedom. And for us speaking into that, for the possibility of someone else receiving that same freedom, if not more, that's why the enemy's trying to intervene right now. So I'm thankful of who has listened so far. And if there's any hope to share this with someone, a friend, a loved one, similar, same boat, whatever it may be, there is power in your story too. And I'm excited to see the other freedom stories that come out from what we're doing and what God is doing as well.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with everything that you said, and we have no idea how this podcast is going to impact people. We don't know.
No clue.
If it's just going to be 4 people that listen to it until the end of the world. We have no idea. But I'm excited for the other conversations that we're going to have, the other episode topics that are still tied to our story and the abuse, but are going to be more conversational pieces. Eventually we'll have our mom on and she can kind of tell her story and talk about her perspectives. And eventually we want to have Alice Mills, who was the lady that helped me and
eventually helped me too. Yeah.
Eventually helped, my sister, and still has helped my sister with some stuff. Because that's been her ministry. Her ministry has just been, inner healing. And so, I mean, there's some exciting things, I think, for us, we want to have, and we want to, showcase, more dialogue on this topic, because it's just not really talked about, and it's it's still kind of a taboo subject, but that's one of the reasons why we feel compelled to talk and do this. So
it's a taboo topic. Enter us.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's taboo. There's a lot of opinions out there. There's a lot of perspectives, and yeah, so we'll keep talking as long as we can.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, thanks for listening this far, and we'll see you guys at the next episode where we're gonna talk about Zach's breakaway story and what that looks like. Fast forward to today, we talk a little bit about it, but that's just gonna be the focus for next episode.
Should we bring popcorn?
That's gonna be horrible to edit with our audios.
ASMR.
No, thank you. Ew. I've been writing notes again this episode of, this will be good, this will be good, this will be good. And then mostly it's been, we need to bleep this out.
Bleep it out.
And I'm so sad. I just realized probably a good 60%, if not 80% of my footage, I don't have any of my video.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Because my camera has a lovely thing where it turns off automatically after like 29 minutes. And I forgot to time myself when I first started recording. So I have about a good 45 minutes of no video of me. So anybody on Spotify, it doesn't pertain to you. But on YouTube, they're just going to get an error 404 the entire time.
It's just going to be
It's
me
okay.
staring at a camera.
That's okay.
I think we should do is you should just do like a thumbnail of your face.
Well, that requires more work for me, sir. I'll figure it out.
It's just a picture that you have to drag over.
You don't know my editing ways.
All I'm saying is if it's blank for 45 minutes, it's gonna look really dumb with just a black
it's not blank.
square.
It'll say arrow 404.
That's dumb, and then you just have me sitting there.
Well,
that's dumb.
Technology's dumb, and this is where we're at. So
thumbnail. We're doing thumbnail. It's gonna be great.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fine.
It's gonna be fine.
Well, thanks guys for listening. We'll see you next episode. Pray for us for technology to work next time.
Yeah. Send Ellie money for her to get a new camera.
And my camera's great, kind of.
Not if
we could do better.
Yeah. All these error messages. My camera's doing great. No.
It's fine.
No, it's not.
We're doing fine.
You're doing.
I need to pay off student loan debt. That's what all the money needs to go to right now, not new cameras.
Debatable.
Okay. Well, bye guys.
Bye.